It's one of my favourite hobbies, gliding, so naturally I was delighted to be asked by the Devon and Somerset Gliding Club to make a promotional documentary video for them. Now, making a documentary is quite different from making videos of family days out or holidays. There's usually much more organisation involved, and that's what this programme is all about. So, see you back on the ground. The most obvious difference between making a documentary and, say, a record of a family day out is that you have more control over what you film. You can literally call the shots. I'm making a promotional video for the Gliding Club, so I can expect cooperation from the members. People are generally very willing to help filmmakers as long as they know what's going on. And if you make your own documentaries, you'll soon discover how long it all takes. And that's something that surprises many people. Tell people what you want and what you're waiting for, and if they understand what's going on, they'll be more willing to help you. It's important before making any formal video or program to do plenty of research and preparation. You decide how you're going to approach the subject. Is it straightforward reporting of facts? Is it promotion? Or is it investigative journalism? Chris, you're the chief flying instructor of the club. What do you want the video to achieve?
A lot of people ask what it's like to glide, how long it takes to fly before they can fly solo, how the club operates. And it would be nice, considering we get a lot of inquiries from all over the country, it would be nice to have a video that we could send them and hopefully persuade them to join our courses.
How far have you thought into how you'd like the video to achieve that?
I've thought a fair bit about it, and I think the best way would be to take a student from his first day at the club through to his first solo.
That's a great idea. There's plenty of drama and tension there, but there's a problem, isn't there? Because how long does it take to go from nothing to first solo?
It can take anything up to a year, depending on the ability of the student. And that can obviously be a problem, because we need the video in a shorter time than that.
Well, in fact, you've hit on one of the best filmmakers' cheats in the business, because it's quite usual to compress a whole year of time even into a 5-minute video if you want to. And I suggest the way to do that is to get an experienced pilot to pretend to be a novice so that he can be an expert at every stage. Having decided the approach, in this case a fairly straightforward documentary about learning to glide, you need to write a script. Now, this can either be a rough outline giving you the bare bones of the program, it can be on one sheet of paper if you like, or it can be a very detailed script which you stick to exactly. Whichever you choose, the script tells you what shots you need, and it's indispensable when it comes to planning and shooting the video. The script for this program looks like this, with a description of the pictures on one side and the script or words on the other. Alternatively, you can use one of these things, a storyboard, which combines a simple set of drawings, and they can be pinmen if you like, they don't have to be this elaborate, with written instructions, and it's very useful for visualizing the finished product. This picture, for example, shows me sitting at the desk with a brief description of what I'm saying underneath. And this picture shows a close-up of the storyboard, which is what we're looking at now. Every shot in the script will have a number so that you can work out the most efficient way to shoot the film. If, for example, shots 51 to 62, 91 to 94, and shot 100 are all shot outside the clubhouse, it makes sense to shoot them all in quick succession on the same day, even though the shots will appear in completely different parts of the video. It seems a shame to destroy a little of the magic, but once you start making your own videos, you'll realize how important it is to be well organized. Well, Chris has chosen his star, and we're going to film the arrival of him and his family in their car coming, we assume, to the club for the first time. But, Chris, you were particularly keen for Peter to bring his family. Why was that?
Yes, well, our club is very much a family club, and people who glide will know that we spend a lot of time on the ground. And I particularly wanted the video to show that everybody was welcome, even if they don't glide.
Well, that's great. I think we can take advantage of that in two ways, and partly now with this arrival and partly later on when Peter goes for his, what looks like his first solo, and they can be already on the ground to welcome him and give him a pat on the back and a round of applause and all the rest of it. Anyway, we're going to do this arrival scene now, which we've rehearsed. Perhaps you'd like to go up to the steps of the club, be ready to welcome Peter as he comes along.
Okay, Chris.
I can signal him to start his car. I've got this thing running. Yes, I haven't lined up. That's quite good. Okay. Come on then. Here we go.
Hello.
You
must... Yeah.
Come
Hey, John.
to learn to fly.
I'm Chris Miller, Chief Flying Instructor.
Pleased to meet you. This is my wife, Caroline.
Hello.
How do you do?
And eldest daughter.
Lovely, but boring. It was far too long, that shot. We need to shorten it. One way of doing that would be to take a section out of the middle. Let's see how it looks.
Oh, hello. Hello. Peter Craig, the other way.
Still doesn't quite work, does it? There's a nasty kind of jump in the middle of that shot now. This is a job for Captain Cutaway. Cutaways are a really useful way of indicating a passage of time, and it speeds up this sequence no end. Have a look. So that cutaway of the club sign made all the difference, and what took more than a minute in real life, we could shorten just a few seconds in screen time. Really useful cutaway there. I'm going inside to shoot some pictures of a pre-flight briefing. Now, when you change from filming outdoors to indoors, you go from daylight to artificial light, obviously. And light actually changes colour. Outdoor light tends to be dominated by blue, whereas bulbs give off a yellowy colour. Our eyes compensate for that automatically, as do most camcorders. This one does. But some camcorders have a manual white balance switch to tell the camcorder where you're filming, inside or outside. Look what happens when the white balance is wrongly set. On the left, you can see everything looks yellowy. And on the right, with the white balance correctly set for indoor light, the colours look natural. And this is what happens to a picture taken outside on a camera set for artificial light. Right, back to our video. I just need a few general shots here because there'll be a voiceover explaining what this pre-flight briefing is all about. It's well worth using a tripod because you get much steadier pictures that way. And remember to vary the size of the shots. Nice, wide establishing shot, close-ups, and of course, reaction shots of the people listening.
One which is a little bit more advanced to that, but is very good reading also, is Understanding Gliding, again, by Derek Piggott. Those you will be able to purchase from the club, and the other one here is Met, because gliding is very much about meteorology.
Well, the club members, as you can see behind me, are all getting ready. They're going off on a task, a big cross-country flight, which they hope to achieve. And you can see, thank you, Scott, exaggerating very slightly, because I know this normally wouldn't happen, but you can see what happens if you're trying to do a tracking shot on rough ground. Well, there are various ways of overcoming this problem. On rough ground, you'd use tracks, and on a smooth piece of ground, you'd use a dolly. A dolly? Well, this is a dolly. It's just a tripod on wheels, really. You wouldn't use that on this rough ground. You can see, if I move that along, you can see this is wobbling and making a very unsteady shot. But it does tell you about grips. When you've seen the feature film, credits rolling, and it says grip, so-and-so, he's the guy who actually operates this alongside the cameraman. But if you want to get really steady shots without using tracks on ground like this, what do you do? That's a great shot, isn't it? Now, tracks were out of the question, and a dolly would be no use because of all the steps, and yet they did get a fantastically steady shot. They did it with a device called a Steadicam. It's big, it's all counterweights and springs, and cameramen have to study for quite a long time to learn how to use it properly. But there is, for the home video market, a domestic version. It's this, a Junior Steadicam. It's much cheaper than the professional one, obviously, and it does allow you to get very steady shots. I want to get some pictures of Chris and Peter doing their pre-flight inspection of the glider, and let's see what sort of shots we get. Set the camera running. Little monitor on the front here, I can just see the pictures. Okay, off you go.
If we look at the other side here, we'll check the wheels, make sure the tyres are inflated and the wheel runs freely. Okay, and check the underside of the fuselage there. If we go around here, check under there, make sure there's no damage to the fuselage. Ensure there's no damage on the wing. And we check the underside of the wing as well. Make sure that that's all okay, no damage at all.
It's time for the takeoff, and in order to get an effective takeoff sequence on the finished video, I'm going to need two shots. One close-up and one taken from a distance. Now, that obviously means recording two different takeoffs from two different positions, but they should cut together to look like it's the same shot. It's another cheat, I'm afraid. Let's get the close-up one first. This is the position from which I got the second takeoff, and it's an ideal place to get the landing as well. I've got the tripod so I can get a nice steady zoom shot. An important part of many documentaries is the interview, and in this promotional video we're going to have one with Chris, the chief flying instructor. Most interviews you see on the news are shot with one camera, and this one will be too. But they can cause problems. I've asked John to operate the camera because I want to make several points about the techniques involved. Have a look at this edited sequence. What happens after the trial lesson?
The student joins as a full member and then continues his training until he reaches solo standard. The student has a...
This is what's known as a jump cut, because the shot size and angle don't change. Any cuts that are made look terribly obvious. It's also a mistake to move in and out when the person is speaking, because pulling away from the speaker looks as if we're losing interest in him.
And it can take...
The way to avoid that is to change the shot while the interviewer is asking the questions. Like this, flying the aircraft right and getting the right number of hours.
Well, I'm afraid there's no escape from the books. They have to have a good knowledge of meteorology, principles of flight and air law.
When the interview's over, turn the camera round and get some shots of the interviewer repeating his questions, as well as some reaction or noddy shots, as they're called, like this. What about Peter? Is he ready to go solo yet? Shooting an interview this way means that you get all the main ingredients: the response to the questions themselves, and the interviewer's reactions. What's more, having all these shots makes it very easy to shorten the interview if you want to. Noddies is the filmmaker's word for a listening shot. You don't need to nod like a puppet, just look interested. Noddies are like cutaways. They're very useful for covering up awkward edits. You see how this interview cuts together smoothly in the finished video. So far, we've got the establishing shots, walk around the glider, taken shots of it taking off and landing, and now I want to get some flying shots, both from inside the glider and from the tug plane. And of course, I want to get some more cutaways. Cutaways, like that shot of the windsock, are useful, not only for covering up difficult edits, they also allow you to jump from location to location, as well as indicating a passage of time. 1 second I was standing next to Chris, and just one quick cutaway later, here I am, on the other side of the airfield. A sequence of cutaways can look very effective when they're edited together quickly, one after the other, as in this sequence of a plane getting ready for takeoff. Watch this.
Clear, Prof.
I want to get some shots of Peter and Chris together in the glider. We can use them early on in the video when Peter's having his trial lesson. That's why I've come up in the tug, so that I can take some pictures looking out through the back window. Then later on, I'll come up with Peter in the glider on his own, and we'll do the same shots again, so that we can get an idea of what he looks like when he does his first solo. So they're very useful shots, these. Now it's my turn in the glider, and I'm getting shots from the pilot's point of view, which we'll use in the solo sequence. I could have stayed up there for hours. It was brilliant. But there's a lot more to be done before the video's finished. We've looked at editing in previous programs, and of course, if you're just making informal videos, you may decide not to bother with editing at all. But if you're making a more formal video, you'll need to edit it properly, because it's during the edit that you'll decide the pace and the character of the program. And you'll add the sound effects and the voiceover. And although editing can cover up a multitude of sins, the one thing it can't do is give you shots which you forgot to get, which is why a script is so important with a documentary. Music and sound effects can make all the difference. Have a look at these identical shots of a church. It's remarkable what sound effects can do, isn't it? Similarly, music can completely alter the atmosphere. Here's a shot of Peter getting into the glider, but with music which is completely inappropriate for his first solo flight. Here it is again, this time with music which captures the occasion a little better and adds a bit of tension. Now, as with editing equipment for home video, there's a lot of choice when it comes to sound equipment. Now, Sound Mixer takes various sound sources, such as music, voiceover, or the original sound recording, and blends them into a single sound track. Now, to add that mixed soundtrack, you need a stereo VCR with an audio dub facility. Now, that's a feature which allows you to record a soundtrack onto your video without wiping the pictures. Now, when you record a voiceover, choose a nice quiet location, put the scripts into plastic covers to avoid rustling, and make sure you have a glass of water. You don't get a frog in the throat. Attach a unidirectional mic to the sound mixer and place it about a foot away from you. Turn the television on with the sound off, and away you go. The Devon and Somerset Gliding Club is the largest club in the West Country and one of the very few to own its own airfield. It runs a number of gliding courses, and this video will give you a brief glimpse of the world of gliding as we follow Peter from his first lesson to his first solo flight. The club offers trial lessons to people who've never been in a glider before, and they help people to decide whether or not they want to learn how to glide before they actually commit themselves to any expense. Before and after each flight, there's a briefing to discuss the weather or any other important points and how the flight itself went. Well, that's the introduction completed, and now it's time for the tour around the glider and Peter's first flight. I'm going to add some music to this, and do be careful about copyright. Legally, you can't just play a record, even onto a private home video. If you want to use music, all you have to do is get a license from the Mechanical Copyright Protection Society, or use copyright-free music, which is advertised in the camcorder magazines. Better still, get a friend to write some music specially for you.
Check under there, make sure there's no damage to the fuselage.
Now you see why it was necessary to record the glider taking off twice from different camera positions. When they're cut together, it looks like the same shot, but of course they were filmed at different times of the day. Filming out of sequence does mean that you have to watch continuity. And that last sequence wouldn't have been possible if the weather had changed, for example. The next sequence will be the interview with Chris. Now watch how it's been cut together, remembering that it was shot with just one camera. What happens after the trial lesson?
The student joins as a full member and then continues his training until he reaches solo standard.
How long does that take, generally speaking?
Well, gliding is very dependent on the weather, and it can take anything up to a year before a student goes solo.
Who actually makes the decision about whether a student's ready to go solo?
A student has a group of instructors for his training during the course, and when the student reaches the standard of solo, the instructor on the day decides. But as chief flying instructor, I have the ultimate decision, ultimate responsibility.
What else is there to do apart from flying the aircraft right and getting the right number of hours?
Well, I'm afraid there's no escape from the books. They have to have a good knowledge of meteorology, principles of flight and air law.
What about Peter? Is he ready to go solo yet?
Yes, Peter has done very well. He has achieved solo standard much quicker than the average person, and I'm quite sure he'll be delighted.
I thought that interview worked well, and you could see how useful the question and noddy shots were when it came to cutting the interview together. You might have spotted the cutaway of the books on weather and law that Chris mentioned. I've used plenty of cutaway shots in this next sequence, which is Peter preparing the plane and taking off for his first solo flight. Now, you may remember that in the first flying sequence with Chris and Peter, I didn't use any shots taken from inside the glider. The reason is that I want to use them in this next sequence to add some excitement to the first solo flight, as if we're actually up there with Peter.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Well done, Peter.
Good.
Wow. Thanks, Chris.
Congratulations, Pete.
Thank you very much.
Your wings.
Thank you.
Well done.
Brilliant. Absolutely.
That shot of the solo certificate is a good way to end the video. In fact, it brings us to the end of this series of Shoot the Video. We've only been able to scratch the surface of something which can become a lifelong passion or even a career. We've given you some basic guidelines, the ones every professional filmmaker or television program maker uses every day. But of course, there are exceptions to every so-called rule. And the best way to make better videos is just to keep shooting more of them and try things out for yourself. I hope you've enjoyed the series. Who knows, maybe I'll see you on location somewhere. Goodbye.